Every single one of us, regardless of our history or where we are right now, we're all looking for that same thing. What are the core ingredients that make a relationship not just work, but actually thrive? And we often get caught up in the surface level stuff, but the real work happens in psychology, in emotional expectations. So today, that's our mission. We're going to distill the core relational expectations of women using some great source material centered on the psychology of women's relational needs.
And this is, I think, really critical context for you, the listener. While every person, every relationship is unique, the research consistently points to these common foundational needs.
Right.
They're almost prerequisites that when you meet them, they just significantly strengthen that emotional bond. So we're going to dig into 10 specific areas that the psychology excerpts really highlight.
Okay, let's unpack this then. What's so fascinating to me is how the most essential foundational needs they're often the ones we mistakenly take for granted.
Yep.
So we're starting with trust and security, the factors that, allow a person to finally drop their guard and just fully open up. Think of this first part as building the absolute base for the house.
Precisely. The first 3 needs we'll talk about create this safety mechanism. The very first one is emotional support. The excerpts are so clear that a woman needs absolute assurance that her feelings are not just heard, but validated.
Meaning not ignored.
Not ignored or trivialized.
And here's where the deeper insight is, according to the research. A partner often assumes they have to fix the problem, right?
Yes, jump straight to solutions.
But the source material, it really stresses that the simple act of listening without immediately offering advice, that provides immense relational value.
That's the key psychological shortcut right there.
Yeah.
When someone's feeling a strong emotion, their brain is already under a high cognitive load. So if the partner jumps into problem solving, it kind of implies the emotion itself is wrong.
Or that she can't solve it herself.
Exactly. By just listening, by accepting the feeling, you're strengthening trust. You're showing that her reality is safe with you. It's this radical acceptance of her inner world.
And acceptance builds security.
Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. You are doing important work.
That brings us right to the second pillar of this foundation, security and stability. Now, historically, this was, very narrowly defined.
Financial security, mainly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the sources, they paint a far more comprehensive picture now.
Oh, absolutely. The modern idea is a reliability across all domains. A woman needs to feel her partner is her support in every sense, emotional, physical protection, and crucially, long-term predictability.
So if his behavior is volatile or his commitment feels shaky,
that need is severely unmet.
The impact of that is just monumental. When she has confidence in the future with her partner, her brain can relax. The energy that would be spent, watching for threats, asking, is he going to leave?
All that worry.
That energy is freed up for deeper connection. If that security is missing, the relationship becomes a source of anxiety, not rest.
And that security is completely fragile without the third component, honesty and openness. The research presents things as the absolute lubricant for trust. She needs to feel he's being honest, even when the truth is difficult.
Yeah, and this brings up a really critical warning from the sources about how things escalate. It's not always the one big betrayal that destroys everything.
No, it's often the pattern.
It's the pattern of minor dishonesty.
Yeah.
Open conversations, yes, they prevent misunderstandings, but even these seemingly small lies, they can just break the emotional connection.
We have to highlight the psychological toll of that. When small lies are present, the partner is forced into this state of constant vigilance, which is fundamentally exhausting.
Yeah, second guessing.
Right. You're spending emotional energy trying to verify their story instead of investing in the relationship. The moment that verification switches on, the safety we just talked about is gone. Instantly. These 3 supports, security, and honesty, they aren't optional extras. They're the load-bearing walls.
That makes the transition really clear. Once those walls are up, once trust is locked in, how do we keep the emotional bank account full day to day? We shift now from that foundational safety to the ongoing, small, consistent actions that show she's valued. This gets us into the next 4 needs.
Okay, so we start with attention and care. And the research is very specific. Value isn't just shown through, massive romantic gestures.
Like a big trip once a year.
Right. It's demonstrated through the care shown in small, almost mundane things.
Give us some of those specific examples from the sources, because I think people can overlook how simple but profound this can be.
Okay, so think about moment-to-moment consideration. Helping without being asked, like with heavy bags. Or anticipating a small comfort, like making her tea before she even asks.
Just noticing.
Noticing she's tired and taking over your chore. These small gestures are powerful because they translate to, I see you and I'm thinking about you.
And the consequence of neglecting this is huge.
Mm-hmm.
The sources highlight that relationships that lack this kind of gentle, consistent attention, they quickly lose that emotional closeness.
Yeah, you start to feel like roommates.
Exactly. You're just cohabiting, not being intentionally cared for. You can't coast on the foundation alone.
And that leads right into the fifth need, expressions of love. This is about the regular expressions of affection, words, actions, physical touch that signal, continued desire and commitment.
This is where we hit that common pitfall. The source material really, really digs into this psychological mistake men can sometimes make.
Yes, the assumption that once the relationship is established, you've won her over, the constant signaling of affection can just stop.
The logic is, well, I married her, that's my proof of commitment.
Exactly. But the research is clear. The absence of continued romance, of those consistent signs of love, it triggers this internal alarm bell of insecurity.
So it's the difference between commitment and courtship. Commitment is static, courtship is active, and if the active part stops, she can feel unloved, even if the commitment itself is still there.
Precisely. And that connects directly to the sixth need, loyalty and faithfulness. This ties back to that core security we talked about, but it demands constant action.
The need here is straightforward, but it's absolutely vital for just peace of mind.
It is. She needs to know the man actively chooses only her and isn't considering other options. The psychological impact of meeting this need is just the elimination of doubt.
Which takes up so much energy.
A massive amount. Confidence in his singular commitment allows her to fully invest herself, which the sources note makes her significantly happier and more relaxed in the relationship.
And that zero-doubt loyalty is the fuel that lets her feel safe. So finally, in this section, we get to a need that is so often misunderstood: respect and validation of her feelings.
This point cannot be overstated. When a woman shares her emotions, especially distress or frustration, it is absolutely crucial not to dismiss them.
And the research gives us specific, really harmful examples of that invalidating language. We should probably list a few.
We should. Phrases like, you're overreacting, or that's nothing, or even, that's trivial compared to my day. These are devastating.
Because they invalidate her reality.
They tell her that her feelings are wrong, that she can't trust her own emotional compass. It just damages her sense of self-worth within that relationship.
And the action required here is understanding the huge difference between validation and agreement.
Yes.
The partner doesn't have to agree with the logic of what happened, but just needs to acknowledge that the emotion she's feeling is real and valid for her.
That's the core takeaway. The goal is just to say, I can see why you feel frustrated about this, or that sounds genuinely upsetting. That validation shows respect for her internal world.
And that allows you to move forward together, which brings us to our final section. The needs that make sure a relationship doesn't just survive, but actually deepens and grows.
Right, moving beyond just coexistence.
To an evolving, meaningful bond. Let's start with the eighth need: quality time together.
Women really value meaningful, intentional time together. And the sources draw this clear distinction between quantity time, just being in the same house, and quality time.
So it's not enough to both be on the couch scrolling on your phone.
No, not at all. That's just sharing airspace.
Yeah.
Quality time requires mutual attention.
So what does that look like in the research?
It's time where you're sharing emotional resources, engaged conversations, going for walks together, a shared hobby where you're both focused on the experience and on each other. These things build a shared history.
The contrast there is so important.
Yeah.
You can be physically present 24/7, but if there's no emotional involvement, that need is just not being met.
No, physical presence without emotional presence can actually feel like a form of abandonment.
Wow. Okay. Which brings us to a really nuanced one, the ninth need: physical intimacy that's tied to emotional connection.
And this highlights a core difference that can often lead to friction.
We often see intimacy discussed just in terms of physical acts,
Yeah.
but the sources show it's much more integrated for women.
That's correct. For most women, the sources say physical intimacy is intrinsically linked to emotional bonding. It's not just the act itself, it's the culmination of all the other needs we've been talking about.
So the nuance is, she needs to feel desired as a whole person who is loved and respected, not just as an object of desire.
Exactly. The closeness has to integrate both the physical and the emotional seamlessly. If the physical part is isolated from feelings of care and safety and validation, it can feel hollow.
Or even transactional.
Right. It can undermine the very bonding it's supposed to achieve. The emotional prerequisite has to be met first.
That clarifies so much. And the final piece of the puzzle, the thing that ensures the relationship is a forward journey, not a dead end, is the 10th need: relationship growth.
Women need to see that the relationship is actively evolving, not just stagnating into some endless, predictable routine.
If it feels static, that can trigger dissatisfaction.
Because it signals a lack of a shared future.
So how do you achieve that sense of forward movement?
It goes right back to that active maintenance. Growth is achieved through continued romance, constant care, introducing new shared experiences, setting shared goals.
Planning a vacation, saving for something together.
Exactly. Those intentional efforts make the bond stronger because they signal that the partner is still invested in making the relationship better.
And if that stops, if the relationship just becomes a routine without that emotional progress, it feels like you've reached the end of the line.
That's the mechanism of dissatisfaction. A lack of growth feels like a subtle, emotional dead end.
This has been a really comprehensive deep dive. We've covered a massive spectrum, from the deep security of emotional listening and honesty, all the way to the daily necessity of attention and validation, and finally, that forward momentum you get from quality time and growth.
And if we synthesize all of this into one crucial takeaway for you, the listener, it's this. While these 10 points are common and essential needs from the research, every single person is unique. Understanding these 10 areas is your map, but true relational mastery requires discussing them openly within your specific relationship. Communication is the navigation system.
That's the actionable wisdom right there. Now, let me leave you with a final thought based on how fragile these bonds can be. The source material outlines what's needed to build a strong bond, so consider this. Which of these relational needs, honesty, validation, security, do you think is the single most difficult element to genuinely and fully repair once that trust has been completely shattered? Something to consider as you reflect on what you've learned in this deep dive.
Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you want to overcome betrayal, break toxic cycles, take control of your relationship choices, read How to Deal with a Love Triangle. The link is below the video.